Hello and welcome to NHL Best Bets. Yesterday there were two games, two new series for round two started in Central and in Western Division. We had picks for both games naturally, and here you see Tampa Bay in Carolina, pretty even game. But then at the end of the game, in third period, Tampa scored the game winner, won the game 2-1, and showed that they are still a regaining champion. Took the home advantage by winning first on the road. And then in Colorado, Vegas came in a short rest to Colorado that has been resting for a week. And the game was pretty much as we predicted and discussed yesterday. Colorado won 7-1. Not too much to analyze there. Numbers showed which team was clearly better. Tommy, what's your take out of these?
Yeah, both pairs pretty much as we predicted. Carolina, Tampa Bay, very even match in every regard. Carolina had their chances to beat Tampa Bay, but couldn't score against Vasilevsky. Only in third period, one goal on the power play. Tampa Bay played very good game defensively. They stood their ground in front of their goal. They didn't allow Carolina to create a lot of chances. The shots were for Carolina 38, for Tampa Bay 30. So there were some chances, but like we were predicting, pretty standoffish game, kind of looking at what the other team is doing and then reacting. So I think this series will be much more active going forward. A little bit cheap goal, maybe the one that Tampa Bay won it with, but these are such small margins anyway that one mistake by a goaltender can lead to the other team winning. So Carolina is now facing sort of a difficult position. They do have to win at home. They are not going to go down 2-0 heading to Tampa Bay. So next game is very crucial for Carolina. I know you have the percentages there, so we can talk about that in a minute. In the other game, Colorado came into the play exactly as we predicted with high-octane offense. They already went ahead 2-0 in the first period, and they were the only team on the ice for that time period. Only in the later, maybe in the third period after Ryan Reeves' antics, it was somewhat of a maybe Vegas got into a little bit in this mood of playing, but they were definitely exhausted. They played their secondary keeper now, Robin Lehner, a surprise thing, but maybe Marc-Andre Fleury was deemed to have a little bit of a rest between the series. So I do think that Fleury will start the next game. Maybe Colorado is not going to score 7 goals, but like we mentioned, Colorado's offense is so good that even with the defense that Vegas is able to play, Colorado will create enough chances to score goals to win the game. So very predicted win, a nice over just by Colorado scoring. We did predict them to score 4 goals and Vegas to manage 2 this time. It was all Colorado, but I do think these teams can play even better offensive ice hockey when Vegas gets their game going, maybe after a little bit of a rest.
Yeah, this was good example that when Vegas has been walking together with Minnesota, and now they face team that has been running for a while, so the speed difference was quite a bit, and like I said, the rest wasn't too long. Now they have 1 extra day to rest in Colorado or Denver, and we'll see how that impacts to the result, but still based on this performance, it would be maybe quite quick series for the Vegas.
Yeah, they have to learn from their mistakes, and they have to see how Colorado managed to make score all of these goals. There were pretty much in every goal there was something wrong what Vegas did. However well Colorado is playing, and sometimes they're just unplayable, simply put. But there are a couple of things that Vegas can definitely do better. But a lot of it I would still put into the fatigue. It's been a tough series against Minnesota, and like you mentioned, the change of pace is tremendous when you compare the way Colorado is playing and how Minnesota is playing. So maybe Vegas now resting a bit, watching a lot of video, and then maybe coming a little bit better to the next game.
And if we now go to the numbers, if you win first game at home like Colorado did, you have over 75% probability to win the whole series. But if you do it on the road like Tampa did, the probability is only 57%. So here we see that even though taking over the home advantage by winning on the road, that doesn't mean too much based on historical numbers. But then when we think the second game, if Colorado will take a 2-0 lead at home, they have a 89% probability, or based on a historical results, chances to win the series. And if the game is 1-1, then Colorado have a 52% chance to win it if Vegas will wake from the dead and win the second game. But that looks to be a bit far reach right now. And same applies for the Carolina. If they now win at home, will go 1-1 to the Tampa, they have a 55% chances to win this one. But naturally, these numbers show that the home team that starts the first two games at home is usually higher ranked and a usually better team. So let's see how Tampa will counter these numbers because they may think that they are better than higher seeded Carolina.
Yeah, in this case, it's interesting because of the situation that Carolina was the higher seeded team. Many would argue that Tampa Bay, especially with the guys back in the lineup, are now the better team from these two, even if they are starting on the road. So maybe these numbers will turn upside down, but we'll see. I do think that Carolina has a couple of steps to take, that they can beat Tampa Bay. But of course, what we saw from the Lightning was this sort of ice hockey that they are capable of playing. They don't need to do much more than that. They have four lines capable of breaking the game. They have everything they need in place to stop Carolina. So if they would go 0-2 up on the road, I do think that that's over for Carolina. But I do also think that Carolina will come back a little bit stronger in the second game.
Let's go to tonight's two games. There's still one series ongoing for round one, and there our favorite Montreal will travel to Toronto and play Game 7. Toronto odds are not so great. They have been fluctuating a bit throughout the day, but still there is a value to bet on a home team because maybe this epic meltdown is not happening this year. Toronto has few times seen, and they have some improved energy here against Montreal from the first minute, because last few games have been a little bit waiting that maybe we win if we play 20 minutes somewhere during the game. And then New York Islanders, Boston second game in Boston. Similar story here based on the value, so not very good odds, but still a clear value for home team here based on the simulations. Both of these bets are a bit against our principles and strategies, but when there's only two games, you need to take what you have.
Yeah, we have to keep on trusting the system. When there is nothing else to play, we go with these games. Nothing really in the over/under department here. These are so close games that we are not able to make a difference in the going over or staying under. But these favorites are such an overwhelming favorites in the simulations that it is a good bet to go. Toronto, of course, at home, Game 7, Montreal. Toronto is a lot better team than Montreal. We are still standing with this idea, and the simulations are as well. Montreal has played really well. That's they have been good enough to challenge Toronto that we were not expecting. But also Toronto has been a little bit of a disappointment, especially offensively. Of course, the injury to John Tavares probably affected a little bit. They do still have adequate cover for well, not as good player as Tavares is, but close to it. So they are capable of beating Montreal by their offense. I do think that Game 7 will be something that Toronto will show up from the early on. They cannot afford to lose this again in the first round. So they will win this game in the simulation 74%, and the odds not that nice, but minus 200. So there is quite a lot of value for the home team. And in Boston, we saw in the first game that Boston Bruins cannot be bullied around by New York Islanders like the Penguins was. Islanders are pretty much left without any weapons against this sort of team that Boston is. So this is also a no-brainer that Bruins are so much better team overall that even if Islanders would take a step up, would improve like they usually do in the longer the series goes on, Islanders plays a little bit better all the time, but Boston still has room for improvement as well. 67% in the simulations for Boston Bruins, so these are quite nice odds for that, minus 160 something. So go for Boston, go for Toronto. There is no alternatives this time for us.
And if we take a closer look of these historical probabilities here, when Toronto won fourth game in a series and took 3-1 lead on the road against Montreal, they had 92% chance to win the series based on the historical trends. And from that 8% that Montreal had after 2 wins, they have increased their win probability or win chances to 43%. So still Toronto is a favorite here based on the historical numbers, but from 8 till 43 has improved the Montreal chances as well.
Yeah, Montreal, like I mentioned, they have played well. So these close games, they've been able to defend their way into the victories that are needed. Of course, when you go 3-1 down, you have nothing else to play for. So you go all in every game. Same, of course, goes to Toronto now in Game 7. So we will see a very intense matchup. But when you take a look at all the players, the way these guys are capable of playing, Toronto has such a remarkably better team that they cannot lose this game.
And whichever team will win this one, I'm pretty sure that we are going to pick Winnipeg for the first game against them because first of all, Colorado example was something that when you are resting, you are gathering more energy than by playing game 7s against tough opponents. And especially if it's Montreal that pulls the Rapid out of hat here, they need to travel to Winnipeg and play there the first game. So that's one extra hole of energy that you need to fill. And Winnipeg is ready and waiting. They haven't played I think in 8 or 9 days. So when that game comes, we have maybe picked for you there.
I would think so. Let's see a little bit how the odds makers will react to this. And also, at what point does this rest become too long? If you're gone for 3 weeks, like we saw with Vancouver Canucks, maybe not a good thing. But in this time and age, I do think that the rest of about a week or so is pretty good for Winnipeg team, that they are bigger guys. They might have had a little bit of an injury problems as well. So now I think everyone is ready and eager to go after upsetting Edmonton in 4 games. So whoever will face them will be in for a very, very tough challenge from the Jets.
Yeah, during the regular season, these COVID breaks for teams, even though some of the players were sick and naturally couldn't train, but most of the times when teams came back from these COVID breaks, they were very good and they were winning the games out of the bat. So I still think Winnipeg is in very good shape. First game, maybe first 2 ones, because these energy levels are not fulfilled in a heartbeat, and Game 7s are Game 7s, so you give everything, because if you lose, you go fishing.
Yeah, exactly. And also, Winnipeg Jets might have been a new situation that they've been able to actually practice together, which probably the teams during this season, especially when the games were basically every other day, they didn't practice at all. They didn't do much else than watch the video, like I keep repeating. But maybe now Winnipeg Jets have actually taken some ice time, done a little bit of work in their power play, penalty kill, all these sort of tactical things. So that also plays into the hands of this resting team.
Yeah, but that game is not yet tonight. We have Boston and Toronto, old rivals, now playing in different divisions and different games that are our picks. So we'll be back tomorrow, see how these picks went.
See you tomorrow.